All right, but yeah. So keep going.
Well, within the court system, you got to get they got to open it up so everybody can fight. You've got to get rid of the bill of attainders that are going on, which I alluded to with the immigrant problem because they have no official right in court. I mean, even though they've been able to play in the capital system, and buy property and everything, at the end of the game, the trump card is you have no official say or connection to our Bill of Rights, which causes a lot of financial hardship, and and like you said, we need to come together as a country. Everybody that's here is here. Have that moment, move on, and like you said, what was it? How are you deal with one problem? What was that?
Yeah, you just gotta just
fix
deal,
the problems
fix
here,
one,
and then branch out and share the love.
and then you just gotta take one problem at a time.
Fix ourselves before we fix everyone else.
Exactly,
Kind of mindset.
and like we gotta get that mindset that we could fix everyone else too, man. Because it's like, but the thing is, why? That's our perspective that they need fixing. A lot of people around the world are really happy how they are. Not everywhere they're all unhappy.
Right.
It's just that there's outside influences that come in, and that's why a lot of countries, you see the immigration policies over there are a lot different than the United States. That's why the United States was like game changing in 1965.
And that's why I like what he said. You got to make the stars up there, the best stars that they can be in every state, and within that having the right representation. That's why within the oligarchy, when you have one representative to 711,000, nothing's ever going to, as far as how the people are feeling, ever going to be voiced by one representative at that level. But if they would come to the levels that are in the books, which is one representative to 30,000 people, then that, is going to start giving people rights, and those that don't have rights but should have rights are going to have representatives, even within that are going to start speaking and say, no, these people need rights because this is what's happened on a daily. And you got people that can come represent people in court. So if it turns into a paper war battle, you can have that battle and put it down, and then let the people decide, because you can't hide tyranny in the justice system. You can't hide behind Supreme Court decisions. Everything needs to. All of our rights are progressive. Look at every one of them. They're progressive. Like you alluded, they may not come from the best places, but they change and they become our rights, which protect us, makes America the greatest country in the world. Mm-hmm. And we got to vote on those. If we could vote alcohol in, out, and in, certainly all those should be subject to scrutiny at different times. Mm-hmm. Not that they need to come down, but at least have that moment where they got to face and say, wow, if I don't, think twice about this or that, this thing could get voted off and I would be the poster child for let one of my rights go, and I don't ever want to see that. I think everyone out there is crucial, but to make them crucial, they got to have representation with somebody in Congress, and partake in where the power lies, and that's like what you said with the money, and if people who think they got what our oligarchies become streamlined and running the way they want it, more power to them, but they better at some point be willing to make changes so everybody can feel that,
Oh yeah. See, I want to touch back on what you said before about like being more representatives and having more people involved, in the decision making and in the way in our government and stuff, and the way that our system is set up. So the way that sounds to me is like, it makes 100% sense, because it's like you're dividing up the power even more. So the less power that the people have now, or not the people, but the people that have all the power now
Right.
have, is decentralizing it more.
Right,
You know,
exactly.
so it's not as polarized as centralized, and so they're like that's also great. And
Right.
and I believe like so many other things could be decentralized. So many other things. There's so many applications for decentralization that can actually help all of us and empower us, like you said.
Oh,
Like if we can do that, make it transparent enough for the citizens of this country to know where their tax money is going, to know, you know, just that, you know, because that's where the
Right.
power is, because that's all our hard-earned, you
That's-
know, that's our efforts, that's our time, you know, and we put and it costs us to be able to just pay those taxes and also live a life besides that. So it's like if people knew where that money was going, they would have more trust in their government, the people and representatives and everything.
And within that, just within the democracy itself, there's so much, outside forces trying to make us feel like it's been hacked or it's been. And the number one way we could help relieve that is by creating, 23 more, call it for what you will, cyber representatives, kind of in the fashion that Fiona from the Republican Party, she wanted to do, and I think you spoke upon that as well. And once you create these, then you got real voting knowledge of who's voting. So if somebody wants to say in a certain area that, the votes aren't adding up, you got a kind of a double blind system where, somebody can say, hey, how come I got my representatives of 30,000, which the law says that it should be, which was put on the books in 1912. But somehow those in Congress have expanded to one representative to 711,000. That's quite a growth. And I think before they can say to us, the people, well, there's too many of these kind of people, there's not enough these kind of people, they got to get themselves, Congress, in line with their own laws, which says that they can only represent 30,000 people, not 711,000, and however they want to create that change, I don't think, that's where it needs to start, is at that moment, because then everybody then all their rights mean something, because you're talking about the size of a congregation, and if it's happening to one person in the church, then it may as well be happening to two or three, and you're going to find out about it. But if you're representing 711,000, and something happens to even 4 or 5 people in one church, who's to say that that's a big deal? And so that's what, I think the hope and how it all kind of goes together, fits together, however, I think we just got to keep asking that we have more representation. And I think everything that you're ready to do and the youth are ready to do will happen. That's why it never happened for my generation. And, we're subject to having to pay the most tax in the world, which is fine. I'm neither here nor there, but let's collect it. Let's make sure it's getting used. And
Properly.
let's make sure that we have enough eyes on it, because you're talking about lots and lots of money, and it's important to lots and lots of people.
Yeah. So I have it. I know that there are people in this country that, like you mentioned, like when your generation and everything, right? So people who are maybe from your generation or young or older generation, they lived in a whole different America, right? And
Somewhat. I think we're kind of happy, but at the same time, we kind of still scratching our head why we have problems that we do.
So during the 1965,
I wasn't born yet.
yeah, but you had the after effects of that decision where immigration reform happened, and that's when they opened the gates to America to foreigners.
Well,
Now, a lot of people during that time, right, in this country, that's why I said the older generations than yourself, a lot of people did not like that law was passed. They were actually fighting against that law, and they weren't in agreement that they should open the gates basically to all these foreigners to come into the country, right? Because they already had immigration problem, right?
Right.
So those people, right? There's still a lot of people in this country that are not happy with the fact that this country has let this amount of immigrants come in from all over the
right.
world.
Well, I would like to start off and put on the books. I mean, the immigration from Mexico has been going on before there was American borders, before there was Mexican. And you're talking about native indigenous people who came up and hunted buffalo on the Great Plains, and I'm sitting here in Colorado. It wasn't named after an Irish, dweller or a pioneer, let's say. It was named after a Native American coming up here who called this place Colorado. And I think that speaks volumes. And I think that speaks volumes again, that the attitude is one that's subjected to change, and like my generation growing up, which, it's not my quote or my observation, but I hold it dear. There was no really prejudice against immigration for a lot of years because we thought it was great, and it was. And then just like the bubbles in the 72, which caused the Iran, somebody yelled, bubble, and it just created this, and immigration, and always will be always blamed for something that, and I think the immigrants have done a very good job for the odds against them to be able to respond to that by them walking out, and having what was that called, where they walked all the illegal immigrants went out of the streets, millions of them.
March?
Yeah, that march. What was that march called?
I don't know.
You know what I'm saying? When they all said, "What if we all just got up and left?"
Oh yeah.
That was
that 1st of May thing.
Yeah, that was just a visceral reaction. That just shows you how connected we are. And it's ridiculous to create any more panic, but it has been going on, and everybody, because before that, Americans, my generation, we had to live with the fact that you had to come across under such dire situations, and that's still a main concern, I would hope, no matter what administrations, that's a travesty in itself, and that we just can't streamline it. But if you want to go back, and I go back to FDR again, who created liberalism, at the same time, you have a lot of the same stuff going on there about, because we were just getting into World War II, but Nazism was just screaming over in Europe. And they had, somebody had put an advertisement in the English paper for a preacher. And a preacher responded and came over, was going to be the preacher of a congregation in, I want to say, in one of the New England countries. Anyways, this was discovered. The courts took him to the church to court and kicked that guy out because you can't advertise to bring people here. And those businesses that do need to be also subjugated to the same kind of scrutiny that the immigrants are going on, because both are equally to blame, I guess. If you decide to come here and you don't want to try to file papers, you just want to come here and go work for a business that will hire you, then you're both, culpable. And it can't be just a immigration problem, because then you get all the negative, connotation. You got to say, well, this is our business, and this is what this business, is surviving on. How important is that to you? And have it, but we tend to only put what we want on the table. So politicians can play the wrong side of hell, the right, or the wrong side of heaven, the right side of hell type of argument all day long, and let us just get mad and be frustrated because nothing gets done. And that's a big part of it, is our history. And hopefully, within this administration, and like your hope is that we get it solved and we move on. It's just not this constant irritant that has to be there, that shouldn't be there. Either, And that's
agree.
just my hope.
Yeah, I agree. Well, thank you.
Thank you.
Do you want to let any of the listeners know who you are?
Nebraska Chris.
Nebraska Chris. All right. Peace.